Hello, hello. Welcome back to our inspirational interview series. I'm Hannah Levin with Heartfelt Wellbeing, and I am bringing back Dr. Dave again today for another interview. And today we're going to focus on food as medicine. I'm really excited to talk to somebody else who's supporting people in their health through food as well. Big proponent of that through Ayurveda. So I'm going to read a little different introduction for Dr. Dave today, and then bring him on. So Dr. Dave Hamilton, you can call him Dr. Dave, specializes in botanical medicine, family medicine, pain management, and clinical nutrition. He uses these modalities to best individualize patient care. And he uses a variety of different, or he treats a variety of different conditions. And what's interesting about Dr. Dave is that he also has a farm, which is home to some lovely animals. And also he grows food and then also wild harvests food, which is something that I encourage a lot in my programs as well. And so his farm won the award, the Paul C. Bragg Health Science Scholarship Award. And he says, the humbling and grounding nature of plants serve as a reminder that all things are connected. Herbs are a natural alternative to pharmaceuticals. Their long and well-established tradition of use and ease of assimilation by our given their similarity to food. So Dr. Dave uses the energetic and medicinal properties of plants to enhance and individualize treatment to promote health and wellness. So I'm really excited to have this conversation today. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Dave. Hello. He's a Christmas elf.
I say that I do this for the kids, but I also do it for myself. Why not have fun? They entertain the kid in you, and
Yes.
you will never be an adult ever again.
Yes.
Enjoy life, right? The innocence of that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was given that advice when I was a elementary and high school art teacher for 11 years. And I was given that advice when I was transitioning into working with adults. I was like, I'm really nervous. And somebody said, we're all just kids inside.
Right.
And I was like, oh, right. I could totally do this. So,
yeah.
There you go. Yay. So speaking of being kids inside, when we were kids, most of us really enjoyed exploring the natural world and probably asked grown-ups around us here and there, like, can I eat this? Can I eat this? Right? So we're like, that looks so beautiful, or that looks like it would taste yummy. Can I put this in my mouth? So where did your fascination with food start in your life?
I think it was my grandpa. And I've had a little bit more reflection about that this past year because he passed away like 2 or 3 weeks after my grandma did. And he between him and my dad, even from a little kid, I mean, I don't necessarily remember this, but seeing pictures of this, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I remember that, whatever memory that is. Like probably 2 or 3 years old, like just like chomping on this tomato, and it's like bigger than my face, and it's just like, all over, right? Dirt on my hands, under my nails, all that stuff, like crying, not wanting to come inside. And I'm like covered in like garden soil, all that stuff. And I'm like inside. But between those two, like my love of gardening has been there forever. As far as I can remember, my granddad always had a garden, until he couldn't, get down on his knees. He was always outside pulling things by hand. He grew up in the Rhode Island, Massachusetts area, and his grandfather had a big farm. The farm no longer exists with the family, but it is now home to a Buddhist cemetery.
Oh, wow.
Kind of interesting.
Pretty amazing. Yeah.
And I got to see this land, this farm, the family land, for the first time this past fall.
Wow.
Kind of cool.
That's great. Yeah. So you grew up with a family lineage of farming and growing food. And for the most part, most people in the United States don't have that, um, connection to food in terms of growing it.
Mhm.
And what do you feel like that, or I guess how do you see that, like that relationship with food being grown and harvested and processed versus just buying it at
Sure.
a store or market?
Yeah, I mean, so, I my grandfather grew up on the farm. I grew up with gardening, but it was definitely on a way smaller scale,
Yeah.
right? Like backyard garden, and maybe it was half an acre, which is a pretty dang good sized garden, right? Um, my mom grew up. My mom was telling me like we always had at least 7 vegetables on the table
Mm,
all the time, and that's just from their backyard garden. And he
yeah.
was military, so my grandfather bounced around all over the place, but he
Mm,
always, wherever he was, if he was stationed somewhere, he had a garden of some sort,
mhm.
which is kind of cool. My mom was like 7 vegetables at any given time on the table.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and honestly, if I'm just honest with everybody, I can't think of when I had 7 vegetables on the table every day, other than like big meals, like
Yeah.
Thanksgiving or something like that. 7 different vegetables. Man, I might do 4,
Yeah.
right? Which is like, man, I'm really lame. Um, but, most of us struggle to even get 1, right?
Mm,
I see that in a lot of my patients. So,
mhm.
part of it is access. I think part of it is also knowing how to prepare things. People know how to cook. Like, at '80s, the advent of, like well, it even goes further back than that. I think,
Yeah.
like, the advent of Crisco for, like, housewives, like, it makes pie crust fluffy,
Right.
right? After World War II, all of these convenience things were like starting to pop up because we're trying to figure out what to do with all this excess, you know, hydrogenated fat instead
Mm,
of making it like lubrication for bullets and things. Where and all that. We're like, well, how can
machinery.
we eat this? Like, yeah, I guess we can eat this. And that's kind of how it all started, right? And not as many men came back. They're single parents and like just trying to make it easier on the household, right? The convenience factor. That convenience factor kind of is the beginning of the end, right? I mean, then we get more fast food, and then we get more like I don't know if you when you were growing up, like there's a big whole advent of the microwave, right? And like how to cook a turkey in the microwave for like I remember seeing these books on the shelf, like what? Like
Yeah.
cooking that sounds awful. Like that
Yeah.
sounds awful. And even new microwaves, like there's no,
Yeah.
like no,
Yeah, that's not how food was meant to be
no,
cooked.
no.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think that people, like, have lost the ability to, like, actually make food tasty, and so
Mm,
they're like, "I don't like that," or their kids don't like that,
mhm.
or and they just keep getting passed down and passed down and passed down,
Right.
right? And now, like, parents be like, "My kids don't like vegetables." Like, well, probably because you don't like vegetables.
Mhm.
So you're not modeling the behavior, that food tastes good,
Mhm.
okay? And
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well, and also that food, what we call food has changed, right? Like we think food is anything that's in the grocery store and something that we put in our mouth and yeah, and tastes good. Our taste is very much informed by what we eat. So if we're eating lots of things that are chemical laden or artificially flavored or colored or whatever, that's what our taste buds adjust to.
mhm,
And so, I mean, I see this in the work that I do too, like people shifting towards, you know, we focus a lot on plant-based diet and seasonal eating. And so it's like the retraining your palate basically is what it comes down to.
yeah.
So for you, when you say the words food is medicine, what does that mean to you?
So I try to be realistic, and I know not everyone is able to do everything all the time, right? I have a gamut of folks, probably like you, like the people who are like, yeah, I wrote the cookbook on that, and I make everything from scratch, and I grow it, and I can it, and all that, right? But for most of us, I would say a good chunk of people, it's like, okay, what can I do with what's available at either a farmer's market, grocery store? I might grow a tomato in my backyard, whatever. But taking steps is better than no steps. So you start small, and sometimes I'll challenge people to like, okay, if you have never cooked this vegetable, I want you to cook this vegetable. Um, want you to pick it up this week and try to prepare it 2 different ways. Okay. And one way you may love and one way you may hate, or you might love both. And now you have new things on your palate. Right. And so when you take away the fear factor or the uncertainty, and you create confidence in people, then great. Or I ask people, hey, is there someone in your family that's a great cook, whether it's a grandparent or aunt, uncle, brother, sister, whoever? Like, get a recipe from them, and it tastes good, and it's supposed to taste like, and go from there, right? And just encourage people to just go outside their comfort zone a little bit and try things. I have some simple recipes that I hand out that are like 2 or 3 ingredients. I try to keep my personal recipes, but also recipes I share with people, not to be like, well, yeah, you can make this wonderful gluten-free, organic, blah, 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 right? And it's all like 45 ingredients. And then you go, of course, you have none of these things, right? Or they're hard to find in a regular grocery store. So don't start there, you know, like, while those may be good, don't start there. You can go simple. Doesn't have to be difficult. And I think people think cooking healthy and clean or whatever is difficult. Does it have to be organic? That's another question. No, it doesn't have to be organic. Okay. I'd rather you eat produce than not have any produce. Frozen versus fresh. Do what's the most convenient and what's going to give you the most shelf life of that particular produce, and it's until you get that confidence. Right. And I think I just went on a tangent and I forgot where I was going with that.
I was just asking about, what does food as medicine mean to you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like, how can I instill not just like body nutrition, but confidence in like experiencing life, right?
Mhm.
The flavors, the smells, the taste, all of that. So like, for those of you who've ever had a garden, right, you probably all know what tomato vines smell like,
Mm,
right? And you either love or you hate it. But
mm,
most people really enjoy it because when they smell it, it's a remembrance of that memory of summer, right? Food is a way of kind of sharing love, light, or emotion in general, right? And when you break bread with somebody, uh, that energy is transferred too.
mhm,
So, like when I'm making food, it's not just, hey, I made this meal. I'm also instilling intention in that food, right? And when I eat it, I have an intention with that food. And so I'm nourishing all aspects of my body, right? I'm being thankful for where it came from, whether I grew it, someone else grew it, whether it was trucked down, from California, someone grew it and it still came from Mother Earth, right? And then all the care that comes into getting it to the shelf, right? There's a lot that goes into that, right? Or whether it's your shelf or from your garden to your plate, like washing it, tending to it, nurturing it, watching it grow for 60 to 90 days, and like, oh my gosh, it's here. I got the one tomato, um, and enjoying it and creating those memories. But I
mhm.
think it's about memory. It's about nourishment of the mind, body, and soul. So,
Yeah.
uh, long story short.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I think you make a really good point there, that it's really about, like, being present,
Hmm.
right? Being present with it. And in our, like, fast food culture, we tend to think about food as like putting fuel in our cars, like filling the gas tank and then keeping on going.
Hmm.
And I think we miss a lot when we do that. Like, it's not just about calories. We don't just need calories in to burn. We are thinking, I think more about, like, what is the cellular intelligence that I want to build my body out of, right? And that is energetic as well as physical.
Yeah.
And we use the term prana, of that life force, like you mentioned, like the life force in food, basically. And so from the Ayurvedic yogic perspective, that's the prana in the food, is the life force. So are you feeding yourself with, and we go into this in the detoxes that I lead, are we eating alive foods that are full of prana and support our life force? Are we eating dumb foods that have it dulled down, which could even be, leftovers, but could also be some like pre-made foods and things like that? Or are we eating totally dead foods that have no prana, no life force in them? And that contributes to us feeling more lifeless, right?
Yeah.
We're struggling there too. Yeah. So what are some of the biggest things that you see in your practice that if you could wave a magic wand and be like, I would like to just do away with people doing this, what would you say would be fabulous?
I would say everyone should have some sort of way to get their hands dirty, okay?
Uh-huh.
And put their hands in the soil and really kinda and don't care what they grow one thing,
Mm,
right? Whether it's lettuce, radishes, whatever you wanna start with, grow it and then build a confidence. But even if you're not a great grower, right? You don't have to not all of us have to be great at all the things. But just having that experience of tending to,
mm,
especially if you have young children,
mhm,
or if you've never had the experience yourself, you know? Take that time and watch that little thing grow from a seed, right? And if I could do that, if everyone wanted to do that, that would be fantastic. Like
mhm.
I'm putting seeds in stockings this year, right?
Awesome.
Of new cultivars and heirlooms, like these black tomatoes I got. I'm like, those
Mm,
are so cool, full of anthocyanidins and antioxidants, and like just a cool cultivar of that plant, right? And who knows if it will grow here or not? I don't know, right?
uh-huh.
But I'm excited about it. Like I got the seed catalog for Baker's heirloom seeds, like, and it's like, this thick and just really fantastic.
Mm,
Lots of cool things and trying different things. Even if it's like a plant that I know, it's different than I find at the grocery store. And it's every season is short, right? It's short and you got to get out there. It's like intention. You can't start late or you're not going to get what you want. So it's like it helps you it helps me plan like
mhm,
the season to come and what the expectations are, but it also helps me reflect back on um other things that I
mhm.
want to plant seeds for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
food is a lot for that and I just went on a tangent, so I apologize. Um
No, it's great. It's a metaphor for so
yeah.
many other things in our lives, right?
But if I could change that into again, mindfulness, right?
Mhm,
You tread lightly in the garden, you don't like clomp through it and or however you harvest your food, whether it's plant-based or if you have animal protein or anything
mhm,
like that. Like it really it makes you got to think about it. Like I've recently gotten into hunting because I
mhm.
own 140 acres and I've got like 50 deer running around. And what better way to kind of um, get connected. Farm animals are great and it's different, but hunting is different.
Yeah.
And I'm a big backpacker hiker, and you walk through the woods differently when
Mhm,
you're hunting. You're
mhm,
more still.
mhm.
You have to be quiet. There's no talking. There's no whatever. You have to be quiet. Your senses amplify, like through your sense of smell, your sense of hearing, sight, all these things. You become more sensitive the more you train them. But if and when you make that kill, it's a whole different connection
Yeah.
and thankfulness. And then you have to process that animal, just like you do vegetables and things like that.
Right.
You got to clean it up. And then you have to respect it and say grace and thanks and whatever you need to do to create that, to keep that intention connected.
Right.
But a
And
lot
time
of us,
is of the essence. You have to
right, right,
work with it. Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
and we're disconnected from that. Like, I've
Mhm.
had I used to do farm tours and kids would be like, "Oh, yeah, well, there's eggs. Ew, it's on the ground." And you're like, "Yeah, you eat this." They're like, "Ew."
Yeah.
Like, "Well, where do you think eggs come from?" "The grocery store."
Right.
These are 8-year-olds, okay?
Yeah.
8, 9-year-olds. That's startling, and the
Yeah.
parents are, like, incredibly embarrassed, like, "Oh my god." They
Right.
definitely know where eggs come from. They're like, "No, apparently they don't," because they're not connecting the dots. They
Yeah.
see bright, colorful boxes of cereal and all that kind of stuff that's marketing to them and adults, and we eat that junk, that
Yeah.
death of life force, no life force, and,
Right.
you know
Right. Yeah. We're not creating um our future selves out of high
Oh,
quality. So you mentioned a little while ago the black tomatoes that you are giving out the seeds for and that they're full of antioxidants. What are some foods that you are really supportive of people having in their diets because of their medicinal qualities.
Oh man, mushrooms. I mean,
Mhm,
I love mushrooms. Um, and mushrooms kind of like the hot spots are definitely like spring and fall, right?
mhm,
But there are winter mushrooms, like oysters,
mm,
wild oyster mushrooms, and sometimes if it's warm enough, you get chanterelles, but that's usually
mm,
in the fall. Black trumpets, and they're full of like protein, they're full of antioxidants, cancer fighting chemicals. I mean, all fruits and vegetables are honestly,
yeah.
but mushrooms just have this like it's like a symbiotic relationship they have with like life and death. They're kind of like to me, they're like the middle world communicators,
Mhm.
right? They can bring life into a situation, but they also can decompose it and then bring it to a new point of being, like what we call like the fruiting bodies that we eat and consume. So they're like primo recyclers. I don't know, they're just fantastic. And they have this neural network that they talk to each other with and all the trees with, and they share nutrients. And they're kind of like that, again, the middle road, hand holding us as people, plants, and environment into a whole different like realm of being.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're pretty great. I loved what was the movie called Fabulous Fungi?
Uh-huh.
That
Uh-huh.
yeah, I loved that movie where they, like, took you
Oh,
down all the
yeah.
pathways of the connections of the fungi. I'm like, "Whoa." It really feels like, I think when we start connecting more with nature, we see that, um, mirror of, like, what's in our bodies is, like, out it's that as above, so below, or the, like,
Yeah.
without, within, it's like, "Oh, those are, like, the capillaries and the veins and the
Yeah.
the messengers and the nerves and the synapses and all the things, and then you're like, oh, that's out there and in here, and we're
Right.
we're all part of it. It's pretty amazing.
What about
um,
you? Like, what are your favorite foods? Like, what are your like, what's stands out for you?
Well, thanks for asking. um, I think I teach a lot about seasonal eating, so
Mhm.
really looking at what is growing in the environment where you live in the season, or what is preserved. Where we are, there's not a whole lot growing. Certainly, if we have cold frames or things like that, we can get greens over winter. But really looking at how do we nourish ourselves within the construct of the season, that container. It's like now it's colder outside and drier, so what's available is like lots of root vegetables and
Mhm.
greens, and so we kind of balance the augmenting foods of like winter squashes and root vegetables that are like warming and tissue building with the more cleansing and um, clearing energy of the greens, and we need both, but in the winter it's more like grains and root vegetables, and even some animal protein. If you eat that, then it's like sweet taste is the predominant taste this time of year. But we're not talking about sugar, So like, I'm a big proponent of not eating refined sugar. Um and and so like then in the summertime, it's more about fresh,
Mhm.
what's growing, So that's more where I come from, but definitely getting more and more and more fresh food
Mhm.
in the diet is what yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
root vegetables, right? Root vegetables and squashes and things that are hardy, right? And they can stay in the ground, a lot of them,
Mhm.
until they're ready to go. And you think about a root vegetable like in wintertime and the trees go dormant and some animals hibernate, right? It brings you down, right? And you're like eating grains that are you stored from summer. So you're eating some of that essence from that vital force in the
Mhm.
huge sunshine,
Yeah.
like summer and spring and all that. But you're also setting intention, right? You're sitting down, days are quieter and colder. You're rooted
Yeah.
at home. You're rooted with family. You have to slow down. The days are shorter. And
Yeah.
so
Hopefully we slow down.
yeah, right, right. And the big thing I see with people is that way, and even I've been guilty of it myself, is just go, 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 go,
Yeah.
go, go. And this past year especially, I've been trying to slow my thought process down, my
Mm.
expectations of what I can get done in a day, because we're all of us are expected to get done X, Y, and Z. And typically most people's jobs expect that you're going to get back with me in 30 seconds or
Right.
less than 24 hours, right? Insane. It's
Right.
insane. And we get caught up in it because
Yeah.
we like to be, all of us like to have that immediate response, and it's addictive.
Mhm.
It's totally addictive.
Yeah.
To be the receiving and also the giving.
Right. Yeah.
But
You
yeah, resetting winter and like
Right.
really kind of slowing things down is big.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
So important. And you make a really good point there too, like when we look at what we might call insane or out of sync, what we've come to normalize, whether it's our schedule or what we're putting on our plate or how we're eating, like we're eating in the car, or we're skipping lunch, or we're eating in front of the television, or what, like all of those things have come to be normalized, that we're crazy busy when we're coming, tomorrow's the solstice, happy solstice,
Yeah.
and we're coming up to this, like the shortest day, the longest night. And are we internalizing that to like sleep more and rest more and be more still and quiet and introspective? And I just led a workshop on like digesting our regrets from this past year, so we're not taking them into the next year, as the solar year begins again. When we look at how we nourish ourselves, the like imbalance is so prevalent in
Mhm.
terms of what are we eating. Like we're eating lots of like holiday treats and things, and it's like then we're just wearing ourselves down. What when like looking at that from, so we're here in the holiday time, and it's like everybody's got cookies and candy and all these things that um are not necessarily so great for us to be eating. What are some foods that you really help to steer people away from in terms of?
I eat all the things. No, so some of the things, I mean, I really love sweet potatoes.
Uh-huh.
They can be, you can make those sweet or savory, right? Without having to add sugar to them,
Yeah.
so you can add your spices and things like that and really boost that antioxidant support, but also just enjoy the flavor of it all. Like your cinnamon and your clove and your cardamom and all those they're wonderful digestive. There's bitters, there's anti-inflammatory action, and of course the sweet potato itself offers antioxidants, beta carotenes, vitamin A, all these things, right? Um, and if you want to add, a little cocoa nib to it and make like almost like I've done like brownies out of sweet potatoes. Okay, and you can have like you can have and enjoy that sweet treat without having to deprive yourself.
Right. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
powerful. And what about in terms of like when people come in to see you, are you like kind of being like, do you eat, you know, hydrogenated oils? Do you eat refined sugar? Do you kind of like the big red flags for you? What are those of like,
I mean,
ooh, let's get that
yeah,
out of
processed things in general
Yeah.
are, the more processed, the worse it is. And so I'll tag on some of those things. Seed oils, depending on like what they are, like canola oils, not great. Vegetable oils, not great. Hydrogenated oils are typically not great. Um, and if I use oil like ghee or coconut oil, avocado oil is all right. Um, extra virgin olive oil for like serving and cooking, light cooking, like light heat cooking. Um, those kinds of things I'll use as far as like oils go. Like, but refined foods, like things that if that bread can sit on the shelf for like 12 weeks without molding on your counter, you may want to like take a second guess at that. Yeah, yeah. If it molds within a week, you're good. And yeah, do you waste some bread? Sure, maybe you do, but you're also not pickling yourself from the inside. Um, but I'm also conscious of people's budgets, because not everyone can afford to throw away or like waste. And hopefully you don't waste. Like hopefully you're mindful about, okay, I bought this. I didn't buy too much and not gonna use it all. Okay. And as that process can be really um it can take a little bit of time to get used to when you're used to buying things and just having them forever, like a loaf of bread, you know. Um, for me, it takes me a while to go through like a loaf of bread. So I buy a little tiny like loaf or I'll bake it myself. But not everyone's a good baker, right? So I try to be what are people's expectations? What's the balance in that until they can make a transition, right? And what's their budget willing to spend? What meals are they willing to do this for until they get to all three meals, right? Because it's not just like, let's dive in. And some people can do that, but my experience, it is not sustainable. You got to take them from where they are and meet them there, and then kind of handhold them, let them go, let them kind of do their thing. Ask questions or send them to a resource where they can get more information if they need it, and do that. So that's more of what I'm after than like, okay, what exactly? I mean, okay, are you eating Little Debbie's? Okay, like get rid of those, right? Are you eating canned
Soda.
foods? What's in the canned food? Okay, let's look at that. What quality are you buying?
Yeah.
Where can you get these things at a discount? So there's a lot of steps that go into it. So asking someone what they eat and how they're what they're putting into, they can get really I find sometimes they can get defensive about it,
Mhm.
or sometimes they're not fully honest because they don't want to embarrass,
Mhm.
themselves because, "Oh, I'm at the naturopath," and, like, their kid's like, "Can we get McDonald's?" They're like,
Right.
"We do not go to McDonald's." I'm like, "Your kid just busted you."
Right.
So, it's okay, okay, it's okay, but it's a learning opportunity,
Yeah.
let's shift, and if you do eat those places, they do have options that are better. Right? So if
Mhm.
you have in the middle of nowhere and there's only thing to eat and you're like dying, starvation, right? You can get a salad at McDonald's and you can get like, you can eat it without the dressing,
Mhm.
or the dressing is not as bad,
Yeah.
right? Or, so you might have to compromise a little bit, but it's an education process. So
Mhm.
I try not to ever make anyone feel bad about maybe where they are with their food choices because maybe they didn't know.
Right.
And just make a shift and change. Okay, can we get rid of one of these things? Can we reduce
Mhm.
sugar? Okay, that's a big one.
Mhm.
Then maybe
Mhm.
crappy oils, and then slowly but surely, okay, let's start adding more produce. Let's start adding quality proteins. Where are you getting sourcing that from?
Mhm.
And slowly but surely, they make a shift, and then they're like, man, I feel great all of a sudden. And then when they eat the other junk, they like feel empty.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of or junk organic stuff too. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah. Organic or gluten-free doesn't mean it's good for you.
Yeah, like, I don't know, and people are probably gonna like, "You don't like Trader Joe's?" I like Trader Joe's business model. I hate the fact that everything's wrapped in plastic.
Yeah.
Everything individual plastic, 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 plastic. I hate
Yeah.
it. Hate it. I can't stand it. Aldi too. People will hate me for saying I don't like Aldi. Aldi is everything's wrapped in plastic. They don't really have that, like, the deals are not that much of a deal.
Yeah.
You think about the environmental impact, you think about all those things.
Yeah. So support your local farmers market.
Right. Support your local farmers market if you can. And I
Yeah.
get budget, but still, it's like just everything's wrapped individual and it's that convenience factor which takes away from the nutritional value of the food.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. We've filled our half hour here.
Easily. We just talk forever.
we can we could chit chat. I've thought of like 30 more questions I wanted to ask you, but we'll wrap it up for now. So if you're watching this on replay, give us a hashtag replay and let us know if you have any questions, and Dr. Dave can answer things for you. But it's so refreshing to me to talk to somebody who is a practicing physician that is also clued into food. I can't tell you how many people that I work with that say, my doctor's never asked me what I eat or like how my digestion and elimination are. Like those are the other pieces of this, right? Like the whole system needs to be happy and functioning. And how do you feel after you eat? You know, a lot of people feel tired or, sometimes empty, like they know they've eaten a lot, but they're still like, there's so many indications of our relationships with food. That's a whole other conversation.
Mhm.
But certainly, starting with quality ingredients and knowing that we can shift things that are happening in our health simply by what we're choosing to eat. Yeah, and doing what you can where you are with what you have is really important too. That you can start making changes small, and no matter where you're starting from, it
Yep.
can be really, really powerful. Any closing words, thoughts from you?
Oh my goodness. Wash your hands, people. RSV's on the rise. We
Okay.
and the other thing too, like, we talk about flu season, and the people probably seen this online too. But we talk about flu season, we talk about this whole thing. We really, and it's not really flu season, it's sugar inflammation season. You know,
Yes, thank you for saying that.
October, right? We started off with October. We douse our kids and
Already.
ourselves with candy. And then we have November where we overindulge in like good food, but also the sweets that go along with it. And then we have a Christmas, right? Or Hanukkah or a holiday season where it's like usually alcohol, sugar pies, cakes, cookies, all that stuff, right? And then we follow it up and end the year with a boozer, right? So
And
set
going to
your
bed
intention.
really late.
Yeah, set your intention for the year, and if you are, and I mean, I enjoy an alcoholic beverage like many people do, right? But I typically a lot of times for the last couple of years I haven't really drank at all, or I'll have one tiny little like yay for the end of the year
Mhm.
because I want to set the intention of clear mindedness for the next year. And I
Yeah,
want to wake up the next day not groggy and like, oh, what did I do to myself? Ugh.
yeah,
Right? I want to wake up excited. I want to wake up with a good meal. I want to wake up, and be energized, right? And
yeah,
take on the next year, whether it's cold and snowing or whatever, with gusto, not blufto, right?
yes.
So, um, if anything, take that into heed when you're making your choices during the holiday season because your immune system's going to thank you. Your family's going to thank you for not being sick. If you have kids, your kids are not going to be sick. So you can enjoy these things. Just be mindful of the overindulgence
Yeah,
because you're going to pay for it in one way or the other.
yeah. Awesome. That is fabulous to end on. Thank you so much for being here. We'll post your website with this interview. Anything else you wanna.
I think that's it, guys. And if you haven't set up with a practitioner, a lot of us, Hannah and I both, um, we're taking new clients, and this is a good time to set your intention, whether it's right before the new year or right after, and start off small. Small steps lead to big changes.
Yeah,
So create what you want, and you can do anything. Set your attitude. If your attitude is one of I can't, that's where you're going to stay. If it's one of I can, you already there.
yeah.
Okay.
Fabulous.
So
Yes.
love everybody. Love you guys. Have a
All
great holiday.
right. Thank you so much. Take care.